What I'd like to talk about today is not so much the why of innovation, because I think we all agree the importance of innovation, but the how of innovation. Where will we get our ideas? And perhaps even more importantly, how will we judge the rightness of our innovations? Those are the two things I'd like to talk about. Yeah.
You now can see.
Great. So it's amazing to be in a place like this where the limits are so clear. As Paul was talking about last night, limits really are a creative frame. And the organisms that are here in this peninsula have some of the most extreme limits possible. And yet, the innovations, I would submit, are some of the most creative. And biomimicry is a field in which those adaptations are consciously emulated. Nature's advice is sought after upstream in the design process, at the design table. Both technologies and perhaps even more importantly, guidelines for innovation. I think that sustainability has become very much a checklist rather than what it needs to be, which is a culture, which is a systemic whole that has a goal that we all agree as a collective that we are going towards. Probably one of the most promising goals that we can look towards are the systems that are keeping us alive right now. And I don't mean the air conditioning systems, I mean systems like this. This is what sustainability looks like. We already live on a sustainable planet. And more importantly, this is how sustainability works. So biomimicry is the process of learning from life's designs and life strategies and consciously emulating them in our technologies, and increasingly in the principles by which we live our lives and by which we run our economies. I'd like to give you some examples in this short time that might be of interest here. Life has many, many ways of desalinating. 40% of the proteins in your body are used to make membranes. So life is a membranous endeavor. And the membranes that are throughout your body there are membranes that are keeping, that are allowing water to go through and keeping salt out, for instance. There's a company called Aquaporin that is mimicking those membranes, those water pores in cells, to create a membrane that is 100 times more permeable than the reverse osmosis membranes, meaning it takes an awful lot less energy. It's actually forward osmosis rather than reverse osmosis that we use. Life uses forward osmosis. It pulls water molecules through a membrane rather than pushing water against a membrane. Much, much less energy. This is an organism, a desert beetle, that's found a way to collect a precious resource, water, not from fossil aquifers, but from the air. The Namibian beetle, and there's relatives of the Namibian beetle that do live here, is able to comb moisture out of fog because of the particular patterning, chemistry and physical patterning that it has on its shell. It's able to collect fog actually 10 times better than our fog capturing nets, the mesh that we use. And I know in the southwest of Saudi Arabia, you do have a fog corridor there. There are people who are creating now membranes, plastics that actually have the same patterning as the beetle. These have not yet been fully commercialized to pull fog out of moisture, but a very, very good idea, I think, in the making. This is another really important one for cutting down on energy use. Life preserves, especially life that dries out, like this tardigrade or this resurrection plant. Life preserves without using the preservatives or without using refrigeration as we know it. This organism dries out almost completely without breaking its cell membranes. Its sugars, the special sugars that it uses to do this, have been mimicked to create a vaccine storage device that is able to store vaccines, not just vaccines, but also blood samples, proteins, all kinds of biologicals without refrigeration. So what that means is, instead of putting solar refrigerators in villages to keep vaccines cool, finding a way to be able to store without needing any refrigeration at all. It's another example of something very, very simple and very, very obvious. Fish school together because as they're moving, they're actually surfing each other's vortices. They're surfing the spirals in each other's wake. There's a group of students in California at Polytech who thought to themselves, what if we put vertical wind turbines in patterns that replicate schooling fish? What if what we see as the turbulent forces coming off of each wind turbine was actually picked up by the turbine behind it as a way to speed it up? So it's not making a new set of turbines, it's actually assembling them in new ways, using less land area. And their calculations at this point is a 10 times increase in the amount of power coming out of a wind farm just by assembling them like fish schools.
That's great.
This is an example of antibacterial approach that does not use chemicals, does not use poison. It uses actually a physical characteristic. There's a shark in the Galapagos Islands that has a pattern on its body that repels, it doesn't allow bacteria to settle. This has been mimicked in a thin film application for hospitals to actually repel rather than kill bacteria. And it goes on and on. There's a company called Novomer that instead of seeing CO2 as a poison, something to sequester under the ground, they're using CO2 as a feedstock for biodegradable plastics, which, when you think about it, is a very biomimetic idea. They actually found a catalyst to get CO2 to cooperate and to create long-chain polymers, which is what every plant and every tree and every algae is doing all day long, is taking CO2 as a feedstock. So these examples show you that there's biomimicry of form, shape-based biomimicry, there's biomimicry of chemistries, green chemistry that's now increasingly being bio-inspired, and there's mimicry on an ecosystem level as well, of ecosystem strategies in biomimicry. Many practitioners now, what's happening is that biomimicry is moving from academic endeavor into industry, where industries are actually bringing biologists to the design table. Tens of thousands of scientists that I've been following for years now are consciously emulating life's forms and processes and ecosystems. A new economic study that was done in California recently says that biomimicry by 2025 may influence up to $300 billion US of economy and up to $1 trillion worldwide, this way of thinking. A very powerful innovation how? A very powerful innovation method. But a method without a worthy goal it takes us basically to a box canyon of unintended consequences. The goal that life has, if you can say life has a goal, the system itself, the emergent property of that system, has been to create a livable planet. These, I don't know if you've seen these graphics, but on the left is all the water, salt, fresh, ice on the Earth in relation to the volume of the Earth. And on the right is all the atmosphere that we can live in compared to the volume of the Earth. And over 3.8 billion years, life's consistent success point, the criteria that it uses to choose innovation after innovation after innovation has been, does it sweeten the water? Does it make life more livable? Does it clean the air? Does it build soil? Does it create conditions conducive to life? And as Paul has mentioned in his last, in the Red Queen Dilemma talk, that life-creating conditions conducive to life, I think, is the design guideline that as a collective is something that we need right now to counteract this sort of disparate set of technologies that don't actually have a theme, a life-centered theme.